Sorry about that. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, right.
So we have agenda changes 9, D, E, F to H. Yes. And what is this about?
Personnel and tax warrant and levy.
That's important stuff. Okay, so we can start out with you, Mike. Go right ahead, pal. Good to see you.
Yes, good to see you.
Has it rained enough for you this summer?
Funny.
Grass is good.
Yes. Turf's up.
Good evening.
You're there with painting and watching.
As of tomorrow is our substantial completion date, and I feel that by tomorrow night, we should be 98% complete with just about everything that would be substantially complete. Report on the elementary school is that by tomorrow evening, the elementary school should be 100% complete. There might be a few odds and ends, and sometime this week, we should have our inspection from the roofing manufacturer, Sarnafil, and get that punch list completed and get them completely closed out. Here at the high school, I just want to thank Mike and his staff for being very patient with me. And it's been a little bit of a challenge, especially the structural steel for the snow load inside the classrooms, but
What was it about that?
there was just some obstructions that made some changes to the steel design, which took some time, and then getting the structural steel shop drawings done, and then the production started. Got me a little bit behind.
So our roof was deficient on structural steel?
No.
Code change.
It's a code
change.
Yes, every
So
year.
then when you open up the roof, you've got to meet the new code. And so they said you got to hold more snow than you previously had to hold.
In a sense,
How often does that number change?
that number changes every time you do a roof project.
So they
For
keep,
SED.
code gets updated every year?
Well, this was January 1st, I think, this code, the international code, went into effect.
International code.
Yeah, international building code.
So what they do is they have to go through your building and do calculations on every area where there's a possible snow load to make sure that what you have there is going to hold up, and the calculations changed compared to when the building was built.
It's always looking at areas where a lower roof meets a wall,
Yeah.
where you're gonna get heavy drifting.
So we have to use the IBC for commercial? There's a New York State commercial code?
They've taken it right out of the IBC.
Wow.
Yeah, they pull it right out of the international building code.
That's usually over.
So how much did that add?
And
Had you budgeted for that?
that was in the project.
Oh, good, so somebody figured that out before we ripped the roof apart?
You have to, yes. Yeah, per SED, when these
So
drawings.
Beard sleeve.
I try to tee it up for you, Peter. I'm trying to tee it up for you. See if you can hit it when it's there.
I've already run that question by.
I'm sure you have. And can I, so, everything he's saying, you're aware of in one way, shape, or form. Have there been committee meetings? Because I haven't seen the call for them
No,
as much.
Not in the last.
There has not been, and things have gone very quickly in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And primarily because, when you say quickly, you're saying the roof has gone quickly.
Everything.
It's the only thing that's happening.
Well, interior, in the interior work, I'm saying too. Because we tore out ceilings to be able to put the steel in.
Right, all associated with the roof
Everything
project.
associated with the roof project, yes.
Okay, and you've been up to speed, yeah, how you do, are you up to speed on that, or is this the first time you're hearing this?
No, I'm just following,
Yeah.
day to day, every day.
Every day?
Have we replaced all the ceiling tile that was stained? Is that part of it?
Everything that was stained due to.
Previous to the project?
Not previous to the.
Not yet, no.
So we still have a ton of stained tile out there.
Right, that our staff needs to get back and replace, absolutely.
Where's that money? Is that in this thing, or is that
No, it just
somewhere?
comes out of operation material
Okay.
funds. We have quite a bit, not a lot, but we have probably 3 or 4 bundles per building in stock.
Yeah.
So I mean, we always keep some in stock.
Something that happens all the time.
Yeah.
These kind of pallets?
Yeah, yeah.
How many do you keep in stock? You say pallets?
No, 3 to 4 bundles, and there's 10 tiles to a bundle.
How often are you replacing those?
You know, you get one every once in a while, but with when we started getting the hail
Leak.
damage, yeah, we ordered like 10 bundles for each building. Because it's not identical from the 2 buildings.
Now,
Are you
Mike-
done? You got more questions?
Yeah, I do.
Well, just let me finish up real quick.
Please.
High school, by tomorrow night, I should be pretty close to substantially complete. Inside the building, turning over classrooms back to Michael. The only area that's really left to be cleaned, I would think, by tomorrow night would be this hallway right here where the dark room is, or the,
Bonnie's room,
yeah, right in that area.
Gordon Bonnie's room.
There we go. So that hallway right up to the
Side of
front,
the building.
and down through to the auditorium, that hallway, okay? The roof, you'll see continuing activity on the roof till the end of the week, here at the high school. The edge metal's going on, that's pretty much about it, and a lot of detailed work. All the mechanical equipment, as of tomorrow night, will be back on the roof, up and running, commissioned and ready to go. I'm done.
Now, all the mechanicals and the vents and everything that were taken off, do they just take them off and put them back on, or they put new pieces on, or what's the deal?
It calls for it to be taken off, and then before put back, if there's things that need to be changed. Everything was re-insulated, all the piping was re-insulated. Some of the piping had to be raised, the refrigerant piping,
Mhm.
because the roof insulation was raised, which put some of the joints inside the insulation, so we raised them up,
Right.
so they wouldn't be in there, they'd be above it in the pitch pocket that was on the roof.
So basically, those mechanicals are more or less from the sky down the same that they took off?
Pretty much. Some changes here and there.
Yeah.
And then they did a balancing report before they took them off, and they'll come back now and then rebalance, make sure things are working right before we turn over the project too.
And this final potential change orders, $65,000, is that something that we know yet, or is that?
Those are my potentials, and that's just due to me keeping track of things during the project.
I know a lot of things sort of.
Things might change
You gotta-
here and there, but there's been some credits due to the fact that we were able to do some work. We had a considerable amount of gyp in the project in case the gyp deck was bad, and we didn't find the gyp deck to be bad, and so we're gonna get a considerable credit for that, and a couple other different things. So those will all even out here in the next month or so. I'll be
Okay.
working with Beardsley. I didn't bother with paperwork, none of us did, because we had work to get done, so I just wanted to give you an idea of where potential change orders are at that time, and that is a negative $65,000.
Good.
So,
Thank you.
yeah.
There's a 15-year warranty on this?
20.
20.
20.
Well, it's a 20-year warranty or useful life?
20-year warranty.
20-year warranty that gets graded out.
Yeah.
So that means we'll have this roof for at least 50 years. How long did we have this current roof?
17.
1995.
Only 17?
Well, 18.
1995.
And they have, oh, okay, so it's actually newer than I thought.
Yeah.
That was a 15-year, and it lasted 17 years, and then the hail didn't help.
And we,
So hail at the wrong, without the hail, would this thing have gone another year?
Without the hail, we probably would get a few more years out of it, yeah.
we've been figuring global warming.
Yeah, well done. Thanks, Mike. Any other questions? here?
Well,
Go.
so the 65,000 means that we're 65,000 under budget?
Yes.
Yes. Potentially,
We
keep
hope.
that in mind.
Don't say that too loud.
And the discrepancy between the 64, or 65 and the ones on the inner page that add up to 78 is, why is that?
I don't know what you mean by the 78.
Well, under approved contracts in phase one, there's a
What page are you
$40,000
on?
potential
Oh.
change. 12.
Oh,
And then at the bottom, there's a 38, so that's 78 and change. So,
right, but then there's some ads too, right? Did I get the wrong?
I don't know. I don't.
See, I got
that.
potential change, if you look at, there's an ad.
At the very end here, total potential change order.
I have 40, 38 negative, right? And then there's 31, 2,500, 2,000,
I'm not sure where you're.
page
Page 12.
8. Page 8. 'Cause I did have some change orders that we're going to add to those contracts through the project.
8 of 43.
Yeah.
8 or 9.
Okay.
12 and 13 of 43.
12 and 13.
He had his own page numbers, and then he
Yeah.
added page numbers to put it together.
Thanks very much.
Oh, okay.
So that's a
Okay,
positive.
right.
That's a positive to their contract, that's a
That's
positive.
positive, okay,
to their
gotcha.
contract.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Well done, Mike. Any other questions for Mike? You got, so Gary's giving you a hard time about what looks like paperwork stuff. You're gonna get that paperwork on time. I mean, that sort of paperwork
Yeah.
member stuff.
The next, we,
So we cut you some slack now, especially if the roof doesn't make 15 years. Tonight, we're interested about some numbers.
I appreciate it, Frank.
You don't know how lucky you are.
I can tell you that we are planning, our last progress meeting was last Thursday, and I gave them until the end of September to get these contracts closed out completely. So by the end of September, we should close out, and I'll report next time concerning where we are with that closeout.
So we go with Mike? Do we need, we got questions for you? How much were you in support of all this stuff going on with the roof? You just
Absolutely
been
none of it, we've
crazy.
been fighting the whole summer, but, no, actually, it's been going very well. We're in daily contact, we're following the contractors, give them a boot when they need it. and-
Looks like clean work. I'm not around the campus much, but at least from the road I drive by, it always looks like they're working pretty clean.
Yeah, they've
You
done a
guys
good
satisfied
job
with
of
these
staying
guys?
on top of things, yeah, much better than the last roof.
Have we used these contractors before?
J&B has done a couple of small jobs for us. DeWalt has never worked for us before, but,
And they've both done very well here?
yeah, they've done well, yeah.
Okay, so moving on, we've got the consent agenda, which brings the question of anybody interested in taking any of these out. Thanks, Mike. Do we need anything removed from the consent agenda, which is, so it's 5A through G? Any need for discussion in here? Hearing none?
The leaves of absence, is this?
So you either want to take it out and talk about it, or are we going to move forward with whatever you don't want to talk about through the consent agenda? Any items to take out?
I have a few questions to ask.
Okay, on which letters?
C,
C, so we'll take C out of the consent. Anybody else? Okay, so let's have a motion for A, B, and D through G.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
And a second, well, no discussion, so it's all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Wow, unanimous. Okay, so C, going to close out approval of leaves of absences for these two individuals. What's the question?
I mean, I read the explanation letter from the Spanish teacher, and I was just, having not been through a number of these yet, I was just curious, is this standard procedure for us to say, like, 2 weeks before school, somebody says I can't work, and?
We got to be careful about this, right? Do we have to be careful about this?
So we need executive
Is
session?
this an executive
Family
question?
leave,
Yes,
that's
also
what
what's
gets
your name?
discussed.
Wait, I hear all things. What's the ruling on this?
We can just speak in
In
in general terms about
You all right with
the vast,
this?
yeah.
You all right with this?
As long as we're, yeah, in
You know what the
general,
question is?
it's a little bit of a short notice for us to be doing this, but under the circumstances, I support it and understand familial issues. And we are prepared to fill the position as with a long-term substitute.
We do
Okay,
have
so
to-
that's not going to be a problem.
And the Medical Leave Act also holds us a certain amount of accountable to that.
Right.
So John, we do have somebody on day one?
Well, yeah, I would expect so. We're working, the two of us are doing.
I'm not
working
talking
together.
about French Disco, I mean.
Well, we're doing some shuffling within the department. The high school has essentially lost its foreign language department in the last week and a half.
Yeah.
So we're interviewing 3 French teachers on Wednesday, who are all open and available to start
Oh, good.
on Tuesday, should we select one of them.
Yes.
The posting for the Spanish position, we're transferring the teacher, Stacy Butler, who has been .83 part-time, is going to move into the full-time position, and then we'll fill with a long-term sub of the part-time position,
Okay.
which makes the long-term sub actually a middle school position. Thanks, buddy. So we'll
You guys are going to
probably,
explain this to us at some point, which may not be tonight, but that seems like we've completely remade our language department in a
Yes.
week.
We've had.
yes. So we'll be hiring a French teacher hopefully this week, and with Mike's approval, we'll yeah, you know, we'll do a short temporary approval to get them started for the first day of school, and then we'll have a motion to appoint them at the next meeting.
And from what I've read and seen and heard, we have high-quality applicants for French, which is
Yeah, I was shocked. We've got, and one person who's got 17 years of teaching experience, but the department was eliminated in another district. One candidate actually taught at the last school that I worked at, and I actually spoke to some folks, informally ran into the old French teacher from Webster on Saturday at a family birthday party and got the skinny. Sounds like she's an excellent candidate. So we've got some real top-notch people that applied for
This
that
is
job.
good news.
Yes.
So.
yeah.
Lemonade.
And the Spanish, I know we've already had some people send stuff in, so we have a full picture from it.
It's good news. So, does that satisfy you, Glenn?
Yes.
Yes, so we can move on this, no other questions? So we'll move to, I need a motion for C.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays, abstentions, looks like unanimous as well. Okay, so that moves us to correspondence. Do we have any? Nothing? What characterizes this correspondence? Because we get emails from the public, sometimes addressed to the board. We get, I don't know. You mean nothing was sent at all to the board in the last?
I don't get a copy of it, I don't want it for
Summer. I see, it has to come to you. So if we get a note from the public, is that something that typically goes in correspondence? What do we feel about that? How do we usually handle that?
I sure.
What do we think about that?
I think we should.
Like, we often receive
should, right,
members
yeah,
from the board,
right.
letters from the community addressed to the board that may not be addressed or heard. How do we feel about just forwarding those
I
correspondence to
would
you?
like it to see them, sure.
To Michael?
Possibly
As
respond.
consideration for correspondence? or-
Yes.
I think
Yes.
that should just be routine.
It should be routine.
That would be, yes.
Okay, because I've noticed that this has dropped off a little bit, you know, we don't get a sort of formal, like, you gotta sign this thing. That we haven't had a lot of correspondence. I don't know if that's just that, I don't really know what that means, because it seems like people correspond with us a fair amount, at least by sending letters to the board. Okay, administrator, so does that mean we're gonna hear from these folks now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sarah, for this
Yeah,
forward. This is a consensus of all you guys?
yeah, we've
Okay.
worked on it.
I don't know if anybody paid, is this in the board packet?
No, I don't think I got that.
Okay.
What is
This is what Sarah sent.
The goals?
Oh, is
The
that-
goals, I got some paper.
It-
I did.
I think I made copies. It is in the board packet.
Yeah, I
Sorry
was
about
looking
that.
at I also
No, this I
emailed you.
scratched, this has been my last few months of scratching. That's for goals discussion, I just
Yes.
wanted to put, I thought that was a liaison into you, or should we start with you, boss?
I'll start, and we'll just go around. A couple of things, we're getting ready for the start of school. We begin with staff, 7:30 next Tuesday. If you'd like to join us and just be a part of either helping serve treats or pour coffee or those kinds of things, I think that would be a great gesture on the part of our
We're
board.
gonna continue in John's tradition of speaking in the
I would
morning.
recommend it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's certainly.
So many of us that can attend.
Now that your daughter's not here, I think you're allowed.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. You're
My son's still here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you forgot?
And at 8 o'clock, we meet in the elementary auditorium, and we'll recognize some staff for longevity, which would relate to Tina's day as far as getting everything engraved. Go 150 miles today to get like 5 things engraved. And engraving might be a business that people could go into. And also just talk about the year ahead and celebrate a little bit the work that we do for children and our community. And then each staff, we're going to do a little bit differently this year. The principals are going to be front and center with their staff in separate locations from about 9 till 10:30. This is our year. This is us. This is what we're celebrating. This is the work ahead. And then there'll be some trainings, and then in the afternoon, there'll be more staff meetings, but also our elementary school has open house that evening, so they focus in on getting those rooms ready. So that's the start of school. As you already have a sense, we're getting a little scrambly here with staffing, but luckily we have people, and so we think we'll be able to start with teachers and get going. The other thing that you may be hearing about is the state released the growth scores last week. Sarah and I and Cisco and John were looking at them today. We already have some questions, so, and we have we have a little bit of time here before we are actually even required to send them back to the state, because it's a combination of what the state sends us and then what we've done locally with our local 20 and our 60 points. So we'll be reporting back to you on that in generalities. We wouldn't report composite scores at board meetings, but just to let you know that we have some questions. There were some things today that we thought we had all buttoned up, and we're kind of sitting there looking.
You're talking about growth scores for the APPR
Yes,
work that the
for
principals
APPR,
did.
yes, those growth scores.
Okay, so we've seen these growth scores. No, well, we have not seen these growth scores.
You have not. So
And they're not released publicly,
They're not.
like the test scores
They're
are.
not, that's exactly right. So, but just to let you know that, we had some questions, and so we're gonna work to get those resolved. But that certainly is a part of the work as we finish off the first year of APPR and enter year 2.
What are the nature of those questions?
The questions were around, we thought some teachers, teachers are assigned either all of a student's time or part of a student's time if they're a special education co-teacher model. And for some of those, we thought, we think the times are wrong, that they're either being counted for more students than they should be counted or less. Does that summarize it, what you said? There's just some discrepancies there that were puzzling to us as we saw what the state had and what we thought was happening. And that makes a big difference. It can make a difference because if a teacher is counted for more students than we think they're counted for, it's a whole different process if they get over the number 17. So that's, it's just part of the work right now. But if you hear things, that's what's going on behind the scenes. And then by law, we are supposed to give each teacher their composite score, their summary, total 1-number score, and their heavy rating by September 1st. And because it falls on a holiday, we will be doing that by the first day of school. So the rest of this week, we've got some work in front of us. So, anyway. That's all I have.
Is that burdensome for everyone or primarily for you? Is that everybody
It's
pulling
the
those things
principals
together?
and Sarah and Michelle Robin and our data person from St. Rick.
Is that going as smoothly as it can?
I think so. And so it may get hung up on these 4 teachers if we can't get an answer back, because there's some gray areas that they never thought about it. I'm thinking.
No surprise there.
So,
That's it?
it is.
Really?
We finished our audit last week, so kudos.
Which
to
audit?
The external audit, our big audit. Patty Reichert really spearheads most of that, and but it does tap into the work of most departments. So at the request of the auditors, when they're on site, people scramble, get them the right information. And so it went really well. Big change from last year, so I felt like we were really ready this year, and things went very smoothly. And overall, so far, early to say, but everything looks great.
When will we get that report?
October. We will meet in October to review that with the board. Any questions about that audit?
So it sounds like it was much better than last year, although their personnel has changed, correct?
We had an entirely new team this year.
Huh.
It felt very different.
Huh.
Good.
I
We
figured
got the
it was
A team this year?
We got the A team, and they were wonderful to work with. Yeah.
Good.
It was very different.
Lots of give and take and discussion.
Here we go again.
Very helpful.
So this, I assumed, apparently incorrectly, that it was the wonder of your procedural expertise that sort of whipped everybody into shape now.
That too,
That
of course.
Is the reason why it went so smoothly, but apparently it is only
It is a
partial.
combination of the two. Definitely, we had a lot more in place this year. We learned from last year's audit, and so it definitely went better this year. Last year was a big learning curve, and so there are many more practices and procedurals in place this year that proved to be to our benefit at audit time.
And is this the same audit that the state said if your population is below X?
No, that's the internal audit.
You know, it's funny, audit, I went to the school board training back, and 2 things came up with regard to this audit committee. I was gonna say it was the board forum, but audit committee meetings actually have to be open meetings. Did everybody knew that, except me? I didn't know that, so good thing, now I know. But I learned something else interesting. We can have advisory committees with as long as we can be 3 or 4 board members, if you have a non-board member and that group is not making a motion, making a final action, you don't have to have those meetings in the open. They're not subject to the open meeting law.
As long as you don't have a quorum.
Well, no, you can have a quorum
Oh,
and have an outside person as long as you agree that you have no power for final action
oh.
at that meeting. It was one of those summer law conferences, and they find this out, right, because somebody sues somebody else. And then the judge has to make a ruling, and that's what the judge found, that because that group wasn't empowered to make a decision. So that, there was a big deal at that meeting, that is a fairly big deal, especially for us.
Yeah.
That like to do a lot of discussing and planning stuff. So
That'll come in very useful this year.
it could.
October 7th, 5 PM is when our audit will be presented to the board in open forum.
5 p.m.?
5
Oh,
p.m.
yeah, before the meeting.
Because we'll go back to 6 o'clock after tonight.
Yes.
What were you guys doing today? What was this about?
Well,
Wait for
actually,
you.
we didn't go.
Oh, stop.
Uh,
It was a good one.
We had thought there was going to be Commissioner King in Syracuse for something important, and got an email late Friday that said he wasn't going to attend, and we were going to do the same thing on Wednesday, so we needed the time here, so we didn't go.
Very good.
Hope
So-
everyone enjoyed the extra hour, we'll go back to 6 o'clock.
Yeah, the 6 o'clock's a little bit better.
Yes.
Yes. Hey, Sarah.
Well, do you want to mention the star? Excuse me.
I can, or Texas will come up again. So anyone that receives a basic STAR property tax exemption must register with New York State Department in order to receive the STAR exemption in 2014. So you're set for this year. For the following year, you need to resubmit paperwork. And all STAR recipients will receive registration instructions by mail.
I received mine in mail on Saturday. Yeah.
The deadline is December 31st, 2013.
But that's, to a certain extent, you're just sort of reminding everyone,
Yes.
right? Everybody's gonna get something in the mail.
Well, I didn't know that till this evening, that, yes.
Yeah, just don't throw it away.
Yeah. It looks pretty official, though.
Yeah, yeah.
I should press my.
That's it?
Yeah, it was good.
I haven't seen you since you chipped it in on that hole.
Just-
I know you've been bragging about that.
Yeah.
It was your one good shot for the day.
Go ahead. What's going on here?
Ouch.
It was a great shot, though.
So summer curriculum just ended last week, so teachers worked hard, they did some great projects. We have a lot of initiatives this year that teachers planned their summer curriculum projects over the summer. They did great work. I mean, some of the things that we're getting in are fantastic. It just makes it all worthwhile.
What kind of things do you get, Sarah?
Um,
Do you get reports on what they did?
I do, and principals as well. So they get the copies, and then I get copies as well and look through them. We're asking teachers to implement the modules for ELA, for math as well, and for Lucy Calkins writing. And so those are huge. Those are 3 huge initiatives. And so what they're doing is they're creating a scope and sequence for the entire year of how all of those are going to blend together and how they connect with each grade level. So they're making sure it's aligned within their curriculum, but as well as the grade level.
K-12 line? K-12 line?
Yeah, I mean, to the extent that we have modules, they're doing that work, but they're doing great. The middle school is connecting ELA and social studies, so they've merged their social studies and ELA curriculum for 5th and 6th grade, and they did that work this summer, incorporating the modules into that because the modules do connect the 2 contents well. A lot of things with technology as well. The high school did a lot with technology, as well as the math department with the math modules. So just a lot of rich work. So I can't wait to see how it's going to all come to play next week when we start. But so that ended up well. And then professional development planning is kind of our focus. We're trying to focus big picture on what's happening this year, and we can plan big picture to a point, but then we need to fill in the nitty-gritty. And we need teachers here to do that. We need to realize how they're progressing, and then when we get to that November date, we can't say delineate what exactly it's gonna look like, because they may need something different depending on the pace of how things are going for them. So, we're kind of focusing on general initiatives and then, making sure that the teachers have that time, so.
So is this partially the reason you're doing these more half days?
Yeah.
Because there was a little pushback in the community about this,
Yeah.
we talked about that. But so that would make, sort of this important that we
Yeah.
get good stuff out of this.
Really
Very
intentional.
Very
Yeah.
intentional, that's the
Yeah.
word.
Yep.
Douglas, yeah, go ahead, Douglas.
Sarah, how do you relate what goes on during these summer projects to the rest of the staff?
That's a really good question. You know, we.
I would relate it to anybody. If you're saying all this
Right.
rich stuff is there, how come we all don't see it at some level?
Right,
Wouldn't
the
that be
only
cool?
thing, yeah, I mean, the only thing that the board gets is kind of a little
That little
blurb.
paragraph.
I mean, not even a paragraph, right, a little
Is that
blurb.
legal to put that stuff up on the web for
Um,
people to see what,
I think it would be great to put
I would like
the
to-
materials on the web.
But you need,
Yeah, I think we need, the support to be able to put it on the web.
How hard is it to, Michael, how hard is it to upload documents onto the web?
It's not hard at all, it takes about 5 minutes to train.
Awesome.
Because I think, when I hear you talk about rich content that exists out there, I think one of the things that it's really important for the community to know that there are teachers that are sort of scholarly about their work as well, right? There's a certain amount of scholarship involved in this location, so I think we don't highlight that very much, right? We just talk about sort of what they do in the class for the kids, but there's a whole lot of preparation and innovation and commitment that goes beyond that. We stink at that. We absolutely stink at highlighting that. Do we have other questions for Sarah? You have anything else, Sarah?
Things are good. Getting ready. Gonna have my first day one, so I'm excited about that.
Looking forward to his first year.
Real first year. Yeah. About 3 weeks in, I'll tell you how my first year went. No, I think, coming off last year and having the summer to sort of reflect on what was, what the successes were, what some of the challenges were. I'm really excited about where we're going this year and some of the progress that I think, with the summer curriculum projects and sort of revamping some of the 5th and 6th grade structure, and I'm really excited for where we're going. And I think people, I keep hearing, "Oh, I'm ready to work. I'm ready to work," and that's a good sign to hear that. I'm ready to get back at it. So I'm excited. I'm excited to get the work going again.
Yeah, so what do you think, just for you in the middle, right? Your favorite place in the middle, right? What do you think is going to be one of your biggest challenges this year?
I think one of my biggest challenges is, making sure that, I was talking about this with Sarah a little bit today about keeping the vision in both camps. That being in the middle, we represent the elementary school and an elementary model and mindset, and being the right at the beginning of the secondary model. Those are two very different ways of thinking about education and thinking about kids and thinking about educating kids, and so trying to merge some common themes and philosophies and making sure that we're very reflective about what we're doing and how we put that out to the community, because that's a difficult thing to do, and it's a difficult thing to do, successfully. My kid was in 5th grade and they had this. Well, that's 5th grade. In 8th grade, it's very different. It's a very different model. It's a very different thought process that goes into things. So, just being very purposeful about that and how we communicate that out.
But I do think you're to be commended for getting the elephant in the room and dealing with it.
Yeah, and it's a challenge, but it's
Well,
great.
it is, but it's very real.
Mhm.
It doesn't exist.
It does.
And I wonder how
To be
much the
dealt with.
portability of teachers in and out of those grades too, right? Because you're certified K-6,
Yes.
right? Do I have that right? And then 7-12.
Yeah.
And so there's a little bit of portability that's separate in those in those workforces too for us, right? How people get, I mean, you're usually either certified in one thing or another, not usually across disciplines K-12, is that correct? Yeah. So that's an interesting situation as well. You've got not only are the kids experiencing a culture, but you've got culturally, you've got staffing experiencing different cultures. Mr. King?
Knock on wood, I think we might actually be ready for the first day of school. Things are in place, schedules are set out. That's pretty much it. The good work has really been what Sarah has been leading us through, which is preparing for our staff development. That was one of my priorities, was having a calendar for the entire year, because we do have a lot of things going on with technology, with the implementation of the Common Core at the high school, and then just the identified needs that we've seen in looking at our data. So, as you asked, Cisco, the biggest challenge is going to be making sure that we stick to the calendar, that we stick to our commitment to intentional staff development, and really use all that time as effectively as we
So
can.
let's get right at that then. So back to the question. What is going to be your biggest challenge in not letting that happen, not getting off the rails? What do you
Well, I think the fact that we've taken the time to develop a calendar that we've been very thoughtful about and spent much of the summer working on, we are incorporating all of the folks over at BOCES, and they're real top-notch staff developers. And so we've got a meeting with them this week to really nail down when we're going to be utilizing them. We're being very intentional about keeping things focused. So having Beth Dreyer come in and work with the ELA department for a half a day on text-based learning and close reading, having Allison Sitz come in and work with the math department regularly over the course of the year as they implement the modules and see how that works to improve our math instruction.
Are you clapping for the math instruction?
Utilizing, again, a lot of what we're doing. A lot of what we're doing is maximizing the resources that we have. Jason Clark, we only have him one day a week, so making sure that we are very intentional about how he gets with people to maximize all the new technology that we're infusing into the high school. So we have, every department has set targets for their implementation of the new tools that we're putting in their hands. So Jason will be working with each department regularly over the course of the year to make sure that teachers are creating lessons that both utilize our tools to the best that they can, but also are doing it in a way that it's focused on the curriculum and not just, ooh, that sounds fun. So yeah, the word that, intentional. Being intentional about what we're doing and not just going like, oh yeah, you need some time to work on that. Oh yeah, go ahead and work on that. No, we've identified what is our priority for our school, and being intentional about making sure that the staff hits right on that now. So.
Well, I mean, it seems like one of the things we've struggled with, at least as long as I've been on the board, is being intentional. We always have people doing 4 other things other than what we hired them to do sometimes, right? And they get distracted, and we can't always be intentional, right? Because we're always reacting.
Right, the word is reactionary. The problem is that given all of the state initiatives that we've seen over the last few years, it's difficult to not be reactionary. 2 years ago, I had put together a whole year's staff development plan around the grading and a book study that we were going to do over the course of the year. And I spent a great deal of time that summer before that year putting that plan together. And then a week before school, we were called into BOCES for our network training and given huge binders of everything that we had to implement that year and over these last 2 years. And so that plan, while I still implemented it in part, really went out the window because we had to follow all the stuff that Commissioner King said you had to do. So this year, now that we're at the point where now we've sort of digested all of these state initiatives and we've survived the APPR, the first year of the APPR, now we can say, okay, we've learned what we need to do to make it useful. We're not just being compliant anymore. First year was, we're being compliant. Now we're going, how are we going to really make this effective? And then the Common Core implementation. Oh crap, we got to get ready for this stuff. Now, how are we really thoughtfully going to implement this and provide our staff with the training that they need to?
Well, and that's right, and that goes back to the test score thing. We had, a little fiasco the last few weeks, right, about that. I mean, that seems exactly what it is. It's a perfect reflection of sort of where we're at. We've got this thing thrust upon us. You're going to modules while we're trying to figure out, we're doing 4 things at the same time. There was that video they sent around about those guys building the plane while it's in the air. Did you ever see that video? That's really quite a nice little YouTube thing. That's what it actually felt like when is watching it, and when the test scores came, it made perfect sense to me that, well, yeah, what did you expect in some ways? Now, of course, we don't like that other districts scored better than us. That aggravates us, but nevertheless.
Not across the board.
Huh?
We did pretty well.
Not a lot of them, but no, if it was one, it only has to be one, and then it aggravates me. It has to be the right one.
Well, I will just close by thanking Sarah and Mike, but especially Sarah, because she's been the one who's really led that process of making sure we have a staff development calendar in place, rock solid. She's been doing all the reaching out to both the state and to BOCES and pulling in the resources, so she's really led us all through that process.
I love hearing that word, lead. Yeah, that's what we gotta do, right? Yeah, it's time for us to lead now.
And not just be reacting.
Yeah, well, as long as they don't change the process on us, right? Anything to report from you?
I guess we thought we had everything ironed out in transportation, but in the last month, we've taken 28 new kids, so we kind of had to juggle some bus routes around a little bit. But I think Lynn is finishing those up today. Staffing-wise, transportation is complete. For O&M, we are going to have 1 vacancy we're going to have to look to fill, but we can start the year out with a sub to take care of those issues. For the summer, the plane in flight, that's where we were all summer long. It's like a dog chasing his tail. We had a schedule for roofing project, and because of Mother Nature and the structural steel and everything else, they were not able to follow that schedule, so we found ourselves adapting to them a lot. But kudos to the custodial staff. They have done a hell of a job this summer in getting this place ready. We're probably about 3 days away from having the high school complete. The other 2 buildings are complete and ready to go, except with some just detail work that they do at the tail end of the summer anyways, just stocking shelves and carts and that. So they've done a great job this year. One other thing I wanted to share with you is I'm assuming that come budget time, we're going to be having some staffing conversations again. And one of the things that I take a lot of pride in is the level of cleanliness and maintenance that we've been able to maintain in this district over the past 27 years. And I think that prior to last year's staff reductions, that we were staffed appropriately to meet those expectations. So we're going to have to do some modifications this year to make do. But at a workshop, I picked up on some information from a company called Hilliard. Some of you might be familiar with the name. They're one of the oldest custodial chemical manufacturing companies in the country. And 3 of the representatives met with Michael and I last week, and they actually offer a program, ironically called CAPS program, which stands for Cleaning Cost Analysis. And what they actually do is come in and do a complete assessment of your facilities from top to bottom. Every room, every accessory that's in there, every fixture, type of floor, everything. Then look at your staffing, look at your procedures, and this all goes into a database and allows you to look at modifying your procedures, look at the frequency of your procedures to get the most efficiency out of your staff, and to project appropriate staffing levels based on the level of cleanliness you'd like to maintain.
How much for this study?
0.
0?
If we buy their supplies.
If you buy their products, but
See
their
how
products,
smart you are now.
well, I mean,
Not just another
their
group.
products are on state contract, just like the products we're buying now that are we primarily use SC Johnson products, which became Johnson Diversity here a few years ago. But so product cost-wise, I don't anticipate there's going to be any significant costs in the products themselves. Where there would be probably a significant difference is any equipment recommendations they might have, because they sell Advanced, which is kind of a higher end. We've typically the last few years been buying more of the generic type of equipment, which comes with the same warranties and everything else, but a little lesser cost. But They have assured Michael and I that we don't have to sign anything, we're not in any contractual arrangement with them. All we have to do is sign on that we will utilize their products.
Is that a burden to utilize their product?
No.
No. Right, so,
I mean-
how much does it matter? I mean, they all pretty much, actually, the state mandates a fair amount of these green products.
Exactly, and they're very similar to the products we're using. I mean, you're not gonna see any, I don't think even our cleaners are gonna see any difference in the efficiency of cleaning with them, or the process is pretty much the same with using, how you use these products.
So they're just trying to get districts to come over to their services.
Well, I think that's part of it, but I don't know any other organization out there that offers a program like this.
It was
And I
very
think,
impressive.
right,
Level of analysis.
and I think in this day and age, which probably is much value here, is that much of what they're talking about, the assessment of the facilities and how long each task would take and who's doing it and the frequency, I've done that over the years, but it's in a folder. It's like this.
Yeah, that ain't gonna help us when
No.
you're not here, so
Yeah.
we need to get
Well,
this done.
they're
for your
taking it all and
replacement.
they're putting this in a database, so what we'll have is we'll have a baseline for where we are now with the ability to make decisions about if we decide we're only going to do these areas once a week instead of every day, what's the impact, bottom line impact on the bottom, and what's your staffing requirements? So we can make those kinds of decisions off of this data. It's a tool for us to use moving forward.
And it costs us just, we have to buy the products, and I
Right,
don't
and I don't-
think it's kind of like an economic burden.
The products are available through DCMO, BOCES, or state contract, just like the products we're using now.
Yeah, really, that thing that they're asking us to initial, it just says, initial below simply as recognition of all the benefits they've agreed to provide as part of their commitment to us, and in return, our interest in working with them as a primary vendor. So they're committed, we're interested by initialing.
How much does primary vendor come into play? Don't you have to put some, none of this stuff goes out to bid, this is sort of just.
It's already bid for us.
It's already bid for you.
We actually, twice a year, we get a requisition through DCMO BOCES, and we just actually go through and list all of the custodial products that we intend to purchase over the next 6 months, and they bid it. There's, I think, it's 44 school districts, I think, on the DCMO BOCES now, or there's also state contract. Hilliard participates in both of those, state contract and DCMO BOCES. So it's just a matter of listing all the Hilliard products we want, and it would go out through DCMO BOCES and be a cooperative bid, and that meets all bidding requirements and financial laws and everything, so.
They started doing this in about 2007, and I think every year they've doubled just about every year.
Right.
Because there's a lot of districts seeing this as value, so we're not a guinea pig at all. We're just well into it.
Yeah, I was impressed how in-depth their database was and the layers that they had, that you could just pick and choose what you wanted to see. It was phenomenal.
I think it also sets an example for our work as a district in looking at nutrition services. Just this kind of level of detail, getting someone to come in. and-
Very good. Yeah, we need leadership over there as well. So, is that all you got?
That's
Questions for, anyone, any questions, sir? Questions? Michael?
Sir?
Nice to
Couple
see you.
points. Best news yet, our 4-year lease got approved with SED this week, which means our iPad minis for high school students are starting to flow, and we're starting to get contacts from vendors about details for those materials to arrive. And that's wonderful news, because this is the longest it's taken SED, in my experience, to approve a lease, which to me indicates a little bit that either SED is backlogged or shorthanded or both. And so we're happy to see this big a turn. We're still taking advantage of summer, and we were able to repair one of our cornerstone servers this week that is responsible for doing everything from loading web pages to loading applications. It's known as a directory name server, or DNS server, and it was one of our oldest servers, and it was giving us problems up and down all year. And so now we got a rock-style version of that running in our brand new virtual environment, which has an N+2 failover. So we're really confident about the resiliency of that new asset.
And we're very happy about that resiliency, because I'm not sure there's one person in this room other than
We're all
me that
going
understood
there.
what you just said.
Well, let me just say this,
But it
there's more
sounded
chance
good.
than ever, when you click, it's gonna take you where you wanna go.
Very good. Is this, okay, so it's a real server in a virtual world, right? So let's just talk about the irony here, right? Do you have a real server? Where is this thing housed? Does he have to have
It's housed in
fans
the
on
Network
it?
Operations Center of the maintenance building. And what the virtual environment gives us is a set of 3 servers. And these virtual servers run on, in a balanced way on these servers. So if one of the servers experiences a problem, the servers just hop over to another working server. Whereas in the old days, when a server had a problem, well, it crashed and nobody noticed. So it's great from the perspective of keeping services running. Yes, things can still break, stuff does still wear out, but our users won't see that because of this N+2 redundancy that we've built into our virtual environment. Teachers are back. I know we talked about September 3rd as this orientation, but we've been seeing teachers back for weeks. As soon as construction was done, they're back and they're sending in work orders and asking for help. And God bless them, they're really doing a lot to try to put together their own equipment. But that's one of our biggest challenges, is getting all the old technology back in working order at the same time that we're about to receive all this new technology that everybody wants. Part of that solution is we're taking formative steps to get this student-run high school help desk based in the library up and running. And we've had several meetings over the summer, and we're closer than ever to defining exactly the protocols and policies for doing that. I'd say that we're going to call this a beta test of the help desk, and we'll probably start small with maybe only 2 or 4 students helping out initially, but we hope to scale up rapidly once we prove that that works. And we imagine initially the students will be doing mostly support of iPads for other students, and eventually supporting teachers with smart boards and printers and all kinds of things. So we're really hopeful that this solution is going to help us deal with some of our cutbacks and help keep wait times reasonable. That's one of our biggest challenges, is knowing or keeping track of what people want. We do a great job at databasing all the requests. The challenge is getting to people in real time before they grow too old to care. So that's it in a nutshell.
But that help desk thing it's sort of the evolution of the old AV club, right?
It is.
You used to have an
Which is
AV
where
club,
I
now you got
started.
these help desks, and the fact is, everybody knows these are going to be the coolest, richest kids in 20 years from now.
You got it. These are
They're
the
sitting there
joggers
solving all
kids.
their computer.
Yeah.
Richest, maybe not coolest.
Okay, so, thanks, Michael. Any
You're welcome.
questions about technology? Yeah, well done. I don't think we have open forum, so we'll do new business, and that brings us to approval to increase the school monitor position by an FTE. I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, so discussion about this school monitor position?
I ask for an explanation as best as we can.
Well, and that's a challenge, because we, and this is kind of a conversation with Cisco in our middle school, when we made all reductions last year, we didn't know how everything was going to play out. And what's happening, and chime in anytime, is as Cisco and Bryce build the middle school master schedule and make sure all the duties are covered and people are covered for lunches and those kinds of things, we believe we need one additional person to fill that need. However, we're still looking to maybe need half a person. We don't know, but we put it on here tonight because when we built the agenda, we thought we needed a whole person, and it's been kind of a state of flux. But pardon me, go ahead.
The middle school schedule is a house of cards, is correct.
Yeah.
And basically the way it works is that when you cut somebody to half-time, you lose them for doing duties, or you lose them, their ability to cover, lunches or study halls or what have you. So when we broke up and said, okay, we're gonna get rid of team time, so what does that give us? So that gave us everybody covering some study halls, but that's like half a period and then the other half of the period, it doesn't all just shake out nicely, because you can't give them extra classes, because we don't have extra kids for them to teach. So, it's all very precarious, and so, you pull out one to say, this'll work, and then this falls, and so you put it back, but then you're missing something here, and so a lot of this is based around coverage that's necessary for other staff. So other staff need to eat, and so who covers that person's responsibilities when that person's eating? So, it's that, when you cut too much, if you shave too much out, then you don't have that coverage. So that's what this position is.
So that just needs to clarify the
It's
position.
around the concept of a duty-free lunch, and if a student needs an adult with them all day long, well, when that adult gets their lunch, someone has to work with that student. We wish it would be cleaner, but it's just not when you get down to these levels of staffing.
So this is in addition to the 4 that we had from last meeting.
And a lot of that is based around student need, right? So we don't know what the student needs until we do all the CSEs, until we, all of that gets flushed out. Once that gets flushed out, then you go, oh wow, look at all the student need, and then you go, whoop, but that takes everybody that we have currently and puts them somewhere, and so now leaving holes, Swiss cheese.
But aren't student needs frequently material? They can change on a dime.
They can, which is what happens,
And when
right?
you're short,
Like-
when you're staffed to.
Right, so to be able to have the sort of fallback position, or at least a small pad, I would think would significantly increase your efficiency about being able to sort of make adjustments without
Right.
starting from square one.
Right.
So these 5 positions were not budgeted. And so moving forward for next fiscal, we will definitely see a significant increase in that salary line. If this position is approved, should we need to, we will dip into fund balance to pay for that.
So I'm just curious about, I seem to remember discussion last year about special needs kids and how we thought that it was a great idea for a number of reasons to try to do it within the building, one of which that allowed them to be in their home school, but the fact that we thought that financially it made sense for us because we would make money by taking those things into our school. You thought at the end of the day that would be a plus for us to actually keep these kids here. Are all these positions and stuff taken into that calculation? I mean, when we look at the resources that we have, and what we're dedicating per student, I'd be curious to know, do we know what it costs for us to have, like, per student, what if it's a special needs? I mean, is that all taken into that calculation?
Yeah, I can get all of that for you, like what the 811s.
Right.
How they are compared to the 811s at BOCES. And, just recently, some of those kids it's just safety.
Right.
And, unbeknownst to us, that's what they need at this time, so but does that, by adding a staff to that child, that increases absolutely on our end versus sending them to BOCES, and having them supported there. That those kids may need another aide if we did even send them to BOCES, so if they were there, we would have to pay for their program and then have to pay for an aide in addition, which would be significantly more if, you're comparing that program to our program with an aide as well. But there's so much fluctuation with these classrooms, because they're all about behavior management. And there are certain times within the years, within a given year, that kids might spike and the other one doesn't. And another one spikes and the other one doesn't. So there's all this, who knows what's going to make that child react the way that they are. That's why they have this program. It just, unfortunately, this is where we're at. But like I said last time, we're immediately trying to take away an aide as soon as they get that aide. We're immediately trying to put them in an independent setting where they're seeing how far they can, how much they can do independently versus having that adult with them. So, we may in 2 months be abolishing 2 positions because we no longer need that, because that's where they are.
This last position you talked about primarily as a middle school thing, it sounds disconnected from the 811. I'm not entirely sure, I missed the last meeting, so is this a lingering question from the last year?
It came up, we talked about additional.
But these school monitor positions, they're not primarily for special ed, are they?
No.
No.
Those 4 were.
Those,
four last
the
week.
4 that were approved were, the new one is to support those 4.
Right, okay, so you asked a question that had nothing to do with what he said, you were asking a question about something from last year.
They relate.
They are connected. I mean, only because operationally, we can't do what we do without that person to support the 4 that need lunches and need the kids.
Oh, so it is in support of that 811.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But then,
At the middle school.
but then also building needs,
Okay, now I get it. I didn't see what the connection between those 4 and 1. Okay, very good, that's good. John?
Did we overcut, or has there, we say we have to, it wasn't budgeted, and may have to dip into the general fund. Does that mean that on our budget projections last spring, we overcut? Or is this because of new people moving in? And I got the part about shifting the team time and such.
It's change in student behavior. It's just a change in student behavior, where, kids are going along doing well without, and then something significant happens and they need someone with them, because of safety for themselves and others. So,
We basically cut the padding, and then we found out we needed it a little bit, is really what happened. We cut down to bare bones.
That's what happens when you're trying to predict the unpredictable.
But I think the bigger question is, we're doing this now, is there any way to anticipate this in preparation for the next budget? I mean, it's gotta be part of the question too, I don't know. I don't know what the broader question is about. What, should we be in this business of providing these services, or should we be outsourcing this? Have we reached the point where we should outsource it again? Is that a question as well? Because initially, it seemed like we were taking these things back because there was a financial incentive to sort of do it, and of course, everybody, the touchy-feely part is, it's sort of nice to have kids that need to stay local. It would be nice to have that, right?
Well, it's more restrictive when you go out to BOCES, even though the program is similar with the 811 side.
It's also wasted time.
It's more.
Right, you gotta drive out there, right. But again, from a strictly hardcore financial perspective, this is it still as good of an idea as it was 2 or 3 years ago to have our own programs like this?
I think so, because
Financially.
we've seen some huge successes with kids. This is just a blip.
That we wouldn't have seen.
Right. There are students who we've been able to keep here because they've succeeded so well in the 811 program, and they're able to now move into the high school with career skills and not needing that behavioral support. So we're seeing a lot of progress. We're just catching kids right now who are falling there. And of course, it's the end of the year, and that may have a factor. They may come in and be great. It's really hard to tell. They're not predictable.
So we didn't have this data on these kids. You didn't have it during the budget season. We don't get it till after.
No, but Gary did bring up a good point. I mean, we have all of the annual reviews completed by the end of June, and then we have to finalize them throughout the summer. So it's partly grabbing the school psychs and their schedules and making sure everything's locked down and everyone's communicating what the needs are for the kids sooner, so that we can present them to you sooner, so that we're not August 26th asking for more monitors.
Yeah, that's a little problem.
Well, it would be nice to have a little predictability as to what you're gonna have to be doing at that point.
Part of it is we should have thought, and I will in the future, when you hire 4 monitors, you need coverage for 4 lunches right away. So that starts to be a part of the person. That plus the needs of our middle school.
Yeah, it's all across the board. It's like, we now, having gone through my first, budget season, having the cuts and seeing sort of impact out, one of the things that, you know, I have to be very conscious of is, you know, what in that house of cards, what am I pulling out? Because it might look good, it might sound good, it might be good right there, and you get that money, but ultimately, if we can't run the middle school without it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't, we're gonna ask you to put it back in at some point, and then
Well, we're
say,
gonna.
what are you doing?
I can tell you that we're gonna ask for some, pretty good thinking about just that question. Because I think we have to ask those kinds of questions. I mean, what, do we imagine we still have a middle school? Are we imagining what it's gonna look like this year, in 3 years, in 5 years? I would, you know, that's exactly the kind of thing we need to hear from you guys on a regular basis. I know you gotta make decisions for today, and we're gonna do other things to that, but the long term, you better come to us and say, I don't think we can do the middle school anymore, and then we have to say, okay, what are we gonna do? What should we do? What does that look like? Do we move 5 and 6 into the elementary school and 7 and 8 into the high school, and we got a nice brick building, or we, you know, move it other ways? I don't know.
We've done it before.
Because I think, you know, when you're telling us we cut these positions, we're looking now, and we need to add 5 back, obviously there's some volatility in the way the kids get evaluated, but the reality is that's also an indication of how deeply it appears we're cutting. Every time we cut now, that's what the cuts are gonna look like.
And it's not unusual this time of year, and for the next month or two, we start adding jobs. We did the same thing last year.
Is there a sense from the faculty, from the teachers, that there is an impact in their ability, having the special needs program as we have it now? Does it impact classrooms to the point where teachers feel like they are being impacted by the addition of that burden in the school? Or maybe burden's not a good word to use, but because I had a couple conversations with teachers about it, and it's just, I think sometimes get the sense that they feel like some of the resources that we devote to it restricts their ability to get the lesson plans out to the kids who aren't in the program. But
that sounds like a morale question.
Yeah, I haven't heard that. You know, I think it's one more resource. I think, you know, what we always need to be careful of is that we have this program in the school, so I think that kid needs that program. You know, a lot of times you may hear that from teachers, where maybe they don't need that, maybe they just need a really good, you know, intervention plan for their specific behaviors, but not necessarily that program. So I think we've been really careful at making sure we have clear lines with how to access that program. I think because that's always like on the top of people's fear that they'll see it, so they'll come. And so, but I haven't heard that it's pulling resources, you know, in terms from planning. If anything, it's adding a teacher, it's adding an aide, especially in the middle school. The A11 program, it's not just one classroom. What happens is, you know, there's 10 students, 5, 8, and those students are integrated into the general ed classes as much as possible. But what happens is a teacher may come with them, so there's 2 teachers, and so that teacher is helping that student learn the material that the other teacher is providing, or there's an aide with that student to help support some of that behavior. If there's a conflict with another student, they may be in there to support that interaction that student may have with their peer. So if anything, I feel like it's adding more resources.
But that's what I meant, though, is the general population teacher, are they impacted by the integration of the 811 students into their classroom? Is there disruption and things that happen where they're trying to get the general population of students the curriculum that we have set out for them to get it all put out?
Yeah.
Is there anything that's holding that back? I mean, do you see that as an issue?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't. I think there's some sensitivities towards some behaviors that might come up, but that's all internal training. It's all, you know, how we talk and address those things, talk about and address those things. I think that the impact, if anything, you know, helps to broaden how we do things. You know, looking at a spectrum of kids, you don't look at one kid and say, well, they're the general population, so I'm going to teach to the middle. you try to meet those kids everywhere that they are, because you have some kids in that general population who are at that low end, and you have some kids who are way at the high end. So if you're not looking at it and thinking, oh, well, I have these kids who have these needs, and these kids who have these needs, and these who have these needs, you're really doing a disservice to your entire class. You can't just teach to the middle. Those things are gone. You know, you can raise the bar all you want, but by raising the bar, that means you give the kids the skills that they need to get through that class, and each kid needs something different.
And that's sort of that differentiated learning. That's the definition of differentiated learning. The question I think you keep asking is, does that differentiation make it harder? And I think the answer is yes, and there are challenges associated with it. And I think sometimes those issues are hard to reconcile when you have behaviors that disrupt the entire class. There's a feeling that sometimes learning is disrupted, and I think those things happen, and I guess I don't hear you saying that you feel that this is widespread, at least from the teachers anyway.
I mean, if you think these are 25, say we have about 25 kids in this, these 811 programs, which we only have 2 now, we did cut 1 last year. You know, those 25 kids, not all of those kids are appropriate for BOCES, so we would have these kiddos anyway, you know, so maybe 5 of them would be appropriate for BOCES, but we're keeping, they would be our kids anyway, they would be pulling on other resources, and they would have less ability for intervention in the classroom if something happens. I think if, you know, and each kid has a plan for behavioral intervention. So if something's going down in the classroom, there is a plan, and everybody's familiar with how to interact with that child, and things to try, and ways to get that child motivated so that they can stay in the classroom.
Okay, we got to vote on this. Do we need more discussion about it?
Can I just, how many, we cut 4 positions last year out of the budget? And we've added 5 back in. So, I know that we're always looking for money, but it seems like we maybe ought to look at this as somewhat sacrosanct, because this is not the first year we've done this. We've done this the past 3 years, 4. So, maybe when we come to budget building time, it should just be, aides aren't being, monitors aren't being cut, because the eventuality is we're going to add it back in unplanned and taking money. So I would just be a suggestion as we build the budget. Let's not even look at those.
That gets to John's question about, you know, could we have prevented this? So it sounds like it ought to be. We can't fuss around with it.
They'll hold you to remembering that.
I don't think we have a problem with people remembering these things. We ready to vote?
We got it archived.
Ladies, we ready to vote? Ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? So it's a unanimous vote. Boy, I didn't even say much, and that took a long time. Appointment of the DASA coordinators. This is a Dignity for All Students Act. And, yeah, need a motion?
Second.
A second, very good. Discussion? Seems pretty straightforward. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Approval to increase the general fund appropriation budget by $45,000 at an interfund transfer. Seems like a definition of a knucklehead thing. So moved, and a second?
Second.
Okay.
Do we want discussion?
I don't want discussion, but is this something other than what's moving on?
Walk us through this.
I think the bigger question is why
where
are
the
we
money's
voting on
coming from and
interfund
where we're
transfer?
going.
Okay. This actually came as a result of our external audit that we just completed. As you know, each year our school lunch is running in the red, and each year that amount increases. So last year our interfund transfer was $130,000, and we are looking forward, and we believe it needs at least additional $45,000. At this time, you know how the state will allow us to carry 4% of fund balance. 12-13, we were, let me pull that number.
1.0625.
Well, we have an additional $45,000 over that is recommended by the auditors to allocate toward the shortfall that we believe will happen in 14. So it's better to do that now with that fund balance because we are less likely to have it in 13-14. Michael had also said that we are also looking for a consultant to look at our school lunch program. Recently I met with other business officials, and it's across the board. All districts are struggling. We have promises through salary contracts that are made out of the general fund for a school lunch program that is intended to run as a separate entity, and they can't meet those salary obligations or benefit obligations. So those continue to rise higher than the revenues will rise, and our revenues are actually decreasing given some of the mandates that were put on the school lunch program.
This needs as big of an overhaul of any part of our school district, outside of the classroom.
This is a
You know, outside
significant
of
piece
sort of
that
the
we'll be looking at
day-to-day
this year.
pedagogical things. This food, transportation, operation maintenance, I'm really pleased to hear us taking a look at that. We absolutely have to take a look at this. I mean, I got Sodexo Marriott people, sending me emails now as president of the board. They want to come in and do these free analysis and sort of say, here's what this can be. And if we know what we can afford, and if we can get better food and kids want to eat it, and I don't know what sense to make of this. It's either the food is so bad, or we work really hard and don't produce good food, which I would sort of hate to think that, but.
There are limitations on the food that can be put out through the school lunch program, so that is part of it.
Based on what we can afford.
Based on what we can afford and also based on the healthy mandate. So the school lunch program is very different than it used to, and healthy food is not necessarily popular food by the standards of all children. So we have seen revenue decrease. Healthy choices are more costly, so it's more expensive to produce that food.
Unless kids are consuming it.
Exactly. And at the same time, we have increasing benefits to the employee retirement system,
Yeah,
health
that's-
insurance, and salary. So it's a combination of all of those factors that will.
We ought to be able to
continue.
fix the food thing.
Well,
We ought to be able to get them good food that they want to eat. It can't be that complicated.
as an aside, we are working really hard at the school board level, the state school board level, at getting some changes to mandates in terms of using locally produced foods, because that really does drop the cost in terms of bringing stuff in. On the other hand, in some cases, it does increase the amount of work you have to do in the kitchen. So there's a trade-off.
Preparation.
Yeah. We are.
These are contraction issues associated with this.
Correct.
We're gonna have those discussions.
So Kimberly, this $45,000 is coming from an unappropriated fund balance to the general fund?
Correct.
Okay. And the general fund pays the school lunch program?
There's an interfund transfer
Transfer.
that supports the school lunch
Okay.
program, yes.
All right.
Mhm.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're unanimous again. Old business. So, this is, really important work that I feel
Wait, we
like
still
haven't done
got, we
very
got some additional.
well. Did I miss things? Oh, we missed the goals.
Oh, no.
Not ready for the goals. And I didn't make my speech for nothing. Okay, so we're accepting why didn't this make it to, could this be consent? Can we consent? No, we can't consent.
It just happened.
Okay, so, looks like acceptance of resignation 9D, of this individual. Any questions? I'm sorry, motion?
So moved.
Second.
Now, questions, discussion?
Other than great regret.
Oh,
Mhm.
and we're filling that position.
It's, it's the
Further
third,
down.
it's, the top of the next.
Very good. Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. This is a termination. I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
This is not gonna come back and bite us, is it?
Is that a public
Don't
question?
believe so.
Well,
We're making the recommendation, we're making the best recommendation we can under the circumstances.
Other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No, we're there. And this is appointment of instructional staff,
Which goes right back to the resignation in D.
and this is a recall.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I need a motion
So moved.
and a second.
Second.
Okay. Discussion? Gotta have this, right?
We're lucky that we get someone that quickly, all within an hour. You know, we had a resignation and recall within an hour. Friday was busy.
Okay. So,
So
yes?
is this a former, I apologize for not knowing this.
We reduced this position.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're there again. This is adoption of the tax warrant. The tax warrants to be adopted are listed here. I don't need to read them. Everybody's got it in front of them? No need to read it for the record? I need a motion
So moved.
and a second.
Second.
Is there any possibility of discussing this? Pretty straightforward,
Whatever makes
right?
any difference.
That's very good, so all in favor?
Aye.
Not here.
All right, we're there again. And this is the tax levy, and three things are listed there for general fund, public library, and total levy. And there's something about collection dates and a 2% penalty. So, I need a motion. And a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion about this? You sort of, our whole life has been about this, last few months. So we'll take, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And we're there. Unanimous.
Non-goals.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm tempted to see where we want to go with the goals, but maybe we want to move 11 in front and then end with the old business. How do we feel about moving policy ahead? All right. Let's take 11A, the first reading of Dignity for All Students, Civility, Citizenship, and Character, Education and Personal Violence Prevention Education. So I need a motion
So moved.
and a second.
Second.
Okay. So how do we feel? Have you, as the policy committee, reviewed this? You guys are good on this?
No, technically we have not. I mean, we obviously have it in hand, but we have not met.
So before we have should we adopt or just
You
first
can't,
read?
it has to have two readings.
First
reading.
reading. No, first reading.
Just gonna first read.
You could adopt on first reading.
We could stop it, but I think this.
Could.
Yeah, how about we take a look?
I think this is something we might want to take a look at.
Yeah.
I did go to a seminar on the new adaptive this summer, and there are some pretty significant, changes. So.
Significant in what way?
I would say to some extent, it's, how to say this, it's more focused on the attempts the administration and staff make to truly provide what is a safe environment for our students. I mean, they're really looking at the behaviors one goes through to ensure safety. As far as, the language you use in front of students.
How much training do we do on this as part of these trainings that you do?
Well, there's a couple of things we're doing. One is we contract through BOCES for them to support us in ensuring that we're doing all of these things. And in fact, Jen Astles is the appointed person at TSD BOCES, so she's going to be our primary person working with us. Amanda Verba previously.
Another Astles working in this school district?
Yeah, no, for BOCES,
No, BOCES.
for BOCES, but helping us out.
Helping out.
And so they come in and they'll do the mandatory training for all of our staff, which is mandated once a year. And then there's ongoing training for the administrative team, as well as there's different support sessions that we go to at BOCES. I went twice last year. I just went to one meeting over the summer. So there's regular things that we're going to make sure that we're up to speed on all of this. The last one, quite frankly, was actually it was one of the last sessions I had with Amanda, but it was all of the high school principals got together to talk through how we survived with the first year, and it was a great, just facilitated conversation about what was working well, what was not working well about our implementation of DASA. And quite frankly, the theme for most of us was that it's pretty much business as usual. We've got, we're in a nice area. We're all pretty proactive about character education, and a lot of the things where we were nervous. When you look at the incidents, at least at the high school level, I don't want to speak for the whole district, but at the high school, there's a lot of accusations of bullying that under the definitions of the law really aren't bullying, they're conflict. When a kid comes to Robin and says, Susie's calling me names, and then you go and you talk to Susie, and then Susie says, oh yeah, well, but Cindy's calling me names too, and here's all the printouts of my Facebook account to show you. And then the other one comes back and says, well, let me show you what she said about me. And so bullying is by definition really a one-sided targeting based on gender, religion or any one of the categories. So most of the things that we would consider as, or that we might think are bullying, really are just conflicts, and that's where we have a really good system for dealing with that with our mental health team, with our team. So we pretty much handle everything that comes in as an accusation. We've got a form that we fill out that is run through BOCES and approved by them. So
we're collecting statistics on this DASSA stuff.
Yeah, we fill out a state report.
This is separate from Aveda. This is not part of Aveda thing.
It's now an addendum, it goes along, and it goes in at the same time, but there's the Aveda report and then there's the DASSA report. So.
Did we get a DASSA report this year?
It's due the next couple of weeks. So one other thing, that the one really substantial change that I'm aware of that we focused on in our conversations was the timeline of reporting. That a teacher or staff member has 24 hours to report it verbally to somebody in authority, and then they have 48 hours to submit it in writing. So if a teacher has any reason to suspect that there's bullying going on or something like that, they have to tell, and if they don't, they can be held liable. So.
It gets messy quick. Okay, so I guess all in favor? Aye. Okay, so we passed that now.
Did we adopt it or just do a first reading?
We just did the first reading. I think that the policy committee indicated they want to get a little bit of review of it. Okay, so I really feel like, and I'll say this again, that this is something that was really important that just didn't get done much this summer. That is our board goals, and I feel almost embarrassed to be sitting here now talking about this at 8:30 at night and how much we want to get into this. Let's just suffice it to say that we had our retreat. I don't think it really was sort of, in my opinion, sort of designed or even planned to be as sort of intentional a goals building thing as it could have been. And then the summer got away from us. That's just, at least for me in particular, got away from us. So we are here now with the opening of school, well, a little over a week away. The administration, at least from goals and leadership objectives, have provided them for us. What I've done is handed you a piece of paper that is the goals that currently existed for last year, and nothing more than pokes, prods, things that have come across my desk or ideas, and I put this to you as nothing more than the beginning of a discussion. There's some pretty significant add-ons. After the facility thing, you might see a digital and a personnel goal there that we haven't had in the past. I don't imagine we're going to have thorough discussion about this. I would rather have more thorough discussion about what kind of a process do you think we can implement in the next 8 to 10 days to really sort of start to hash this out. Each of us sort of take one or two and sort of flesh it out a little bit. Do we feel like we like the goals we have? I'm really open-minded, completely open-ended, and do we feel like we need to have them sort of in place by the time school opens? Do we feel like that affects, how we look as a board, not having our goals done? I don't really care much about how we look. I care more about, sort of how we operate.
What's the limitation on being able to adjust the goals once they've been adopted?
Say that again?
Is there any kind of limitation on being able to adjust or change the goals once they've been adopted, in the course of the same year they were adopted?
I don't know what other people's answer to that would be, but my answer would be is that really goals is the compass. It's sort of trying to define what sort of true north is for that year, for that district. And I think if we change them a lot, then the question is, are we measuring them properly? Was it something that was thought out well enough to be able to measure? And I think one of the things I liked about what the leadership put together is that there is some idea of what they're measuring. How are we going to know we're actually doing these things? So, I don't know. Listen, let me tell you, I won't speak ill of the board when I got on board, but these things were basically schlepped together the first few years. I mean, I took it on myself to sort of write them the first couple of times, and everybody, that was great. And then it sort of has evolved to the point now where this really needs work, because we've got a leadership that I think is looking for us to set that target, to set that true north, whatever that is.
Well, I have a question that I'd like to discuss very, very briefly. Michael and I have had a very brief discussion about this. I don't think the district has long-term goals. Do we have a 3-year plan? Where are we going to be in 5 years? What's the demographics? Can we predict any of this? One of the things you did have in here that was something that I thought would be a good idea is we need a marketing plan. We need to be able to sort of position ourselves as a product that people need to consume. I don't think the community looks at us in a way that they see the value that we're producing. They say, oh, Trumansburg, we have good schools, we respect them. But they don't really understand exactly the kind of value and the kind of assets that we're giving to the kids. I don't think we know exactly where we're going in 5 years. If any of you do know, please let me know.
Well, I think we know in broad strokes. It looks like, at least...
But what is it based on, Frank?
It's based on two things. It's based on what it appears the population's been doing for the last 10 to 15 years, which
Can
is
you give me hard
stabilizing.
data on that?
Well, it's,
28.
listen, we got the, well, listen, I mean, I don't think there's any way to go any further than looking at the data you've collected, and it doesn't appear economically that the indicators are that we're gonna crash any further. It looks like it's stabilized right now. So that's the one measure that I think is really important. The other measure that we know is we're gonna have significantly less contribution from state and federal sources. You don't agree? You think those numbers?
I totally agree.
You totally agree. So those are two things we've hit on the head so far, and I think we are still not back to the place where, particularly in New York communities, that the public has any stomach for significant increases in their local contribution to public education.
Not till we-
So those are our three operating
Yeah,
models.
but that's the scariest part of this whole problem, is the fact that, as I said to Michael, I don't think we're looking at a slippery slope, I think we're on it. And I think it's scary to me at this point. Looking at what we're going to be expected to cut, basically, what, another $800,000 next year? We're not going to have the Trumansburg that we thought we had in terms of the quality of the program. And
Well,
that
yeah.
sort of permeates throughout the entire community.
Well, and it's beginning to
Well,
bubble
I think
throughout
that-
the nation. I
I
mean,
mean,
Philadelphia.
my gut sense is, if that is in fact how you feel, then we better have goals that we spend our time working on, that if that's the case, I mean, in many ways, it doesn't make sense to make 3-year plans. We have to sort of brace ourselves. I believe we've never been able to do any long-term planning for two reasons. One is, we have not had stable, competent leadership. And number two is that the financial picture, I think that the direness of the financial picture has created that imagery of slippery slope stuff, and all we do is be reactionary. We don't get to do things intentional.
Well,
That's what goals are supposed to be for, to be more intentional.
But I think state ed and the governors have really also caused some
Forces are changing.
real
Yeah, cause.
problems with us. I mean, it's hard to keep going on a straight line or making a plan when what you're supposed to do changes drastically from one year to the next.
Yeah, but I'm sort of wondering, I have to tell you, I'm a little bit wondering, maybe, I'm trying to think, okay, they've set a new task, we got this Common Core stuff, we're trained up, you're spending your time fussing about doing this, doing the APPR, right? But ultimately, we're not adding staff necessarily to deal with those things that we're doing. We are cutting staff. And the only time we seem to add is when we have to go to the monitor room, but, yeah.
Well, and our current staff is absorbing the additional things we're asked to do.
So I'm wondering if, at this time of night, where the board wants to go. I mean, Jane has made the suggestion, we need a 3 to 5 year plan, and also suggested we can't predict what's going to happen. So I guess I'm sort of interested in, what is the process we want to use moving forward? Because we've already sort of decided we wanted to have some board meetings that were conversations, rather than sort of what we did tonight for an hour and a half, the business of the district. Conversations of these types of facing these realities. I think, in many ways I would have liked to have had, I know Gary and I had some talks about bantering this about, we've had talks about doing this, but ultimately I have to tell you, I feel like I failed a little bit in the one thing I think is most important for this job is to sort of get something for people to respond to sometimes, and I feel like I'm coming to you with this now. Not that it's my job to do it, but I think somebody's got to start it, and we couldn't get it started at that retreat the other night. I'm interested in just sort of starting it now. Where do we want to go with this as a board? Are there things to flesh out? Are there things we want to add? Are there things we want to take out? Like, I thought for, when I'm looking at this thing, this Common Core standard on page 2, this objective on page 2, is, is detailed out to the sort of minutia that your goals are detailed out to. I mean, my first question, and I was putting this together, like, how'd we do on this? I mean, I don't want to use a test score as determining how we did on this. Is there part of the discussion and process that should be, how did we do on the goals that we set for last year? I don't know what, I'm wondering about the process moving forward. Do we want to schedule another board meeting? Do we want to do this now?
I'm afraid that this is a very large task, and even one board meeting is not gonna bring this to where it should be.
Subcommittee.
From what I've read that you put here, they all make sense. And to a great extent, they're a repeat of last year with a few changes. This is not something that can be zipped through, and whether it's a 2 or 3 meeting process, or even if you took it one by one, made a change to this to add to the vision or the first goal, and adopt that, then go to the second goal. We're not gonna be able to do this as one big collective thing. Take it a small step, take one meeting and dedicate it to all children in, what we read by grade 3. How are we going to measure that? How are we going to do that? Do one goal at a time.
But if we do that, the goals aren't going to be set till next school year.
The goals are there. What we're looking for is a way to measure it. How
Well,
are we
I
going
think
to
there's two
implement it?
things there, John. I think that one is there are goals that we set from previous boards that I think we want to revisit. We always have discussion about these. And if we feel like, yep, this is still something we like that when John has to make a decision, he keeps coming back to the 100% graduation rate, and he ties it up to that. Do we still like that goal? So there's a part of it's that sort of affirming that we like the goals we had. And the other part is, number one, either if we don't affirm it, okay, do we think we want another metric here? And then I just put some other things in there. I think, have things with regard to effective teaching, APPR. What are ways we measure academic achievement? Why aren't we thinking about our scholars, the teachers that are doing it as part of our academic achievement? What's our goal for them to achieve things as well?
Fran, can I interrupt you for just a moment? I think we're getting a little bit too broad in terms of what it is that we say should be done. I think our goal is to be leaders, set policies. These are the specialists. These are the guys that know what metrics we should be using, how to go about being able to, and once they agree with where we want them to go and they want to go there as well, I think they're the ones with the education that's going to be able to say, this is the best way to be able to figure it out, unless I'm putting too much on you.
Well, I don't agree, but, I don't agree, but I understand what you're saying, I don't agree with it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure what you're saying, Jane, before I agree or disagree. So, what are you saying? Could you recap it for me?
I sort of agree with her to a certain extent, where I think what she's saying, I don't want to speak for her, but.
No, interpret what I'm saying. because
Tell
you're
him,
coming.
tell him he's got how to boil the egg, I hate to say that, but
So it's not,
getting so deep into the minutia that we're telling them how to do their daily job, I think that our goal shouldn't be that convoluted.
Zero interest in that.
Right.
I think it's important for us to understand, and I think, as I said, it's a leadership position. It's not basically, I like your metaphor. They know how to boil the egg.
We want the egg boiled, right?
Okay, well, I think
To some extent, I can relate to that as well.
Yeah.
If I may, the one thing that when you talk about the role of a Board of Education, you talk about that, the 30,000-foot perspective. From what Jane just said, the idea of graduating 100% of our kids, what does that mean? That we talked at a retreat a great deal about college and career ready, so that may be, you want to now refine that graduation goal of 100%, but now we also want to enhance college and career readiness. We want to do it fiscally responsibly, so a fiscal goal. But I've heard, Frank, you've said multiple times in conversations that idea of being a school of destination, and I heard the word marketing come out. These are, if you say, we want to be a school of destination, and set that goal, and then throw that back to us as a leadership team and say, now how could we do that and we can provide you with feedback on how we would do that. And I think, does that get to what you're
Yes.
trying to say? That idea of, you're saying we want a district that has high standards, is fiscally responsible, and is...
But at least articulated in a way that provides some direction that I think is our job as leaders, is to provide that direction. And then for us to banter about whether we agree that's a direction we should go. For example, if you look at the digital thing, and I'll just draw an example to this again. If you look at the digital goal I just sort of threw out there, support and assess the one-to-one initiative to increase digital literacy among faculty, staff, and students. I don't know what that means. I just sort of said support and assess.
Right.
How are we doing it? But that is something that is clear to me that this leadership team has invested in a fair amount of time in. They've made that presentation to us. It set a model for us in many ways. So we want to support that. Now, how do we support and assess that we are increasing our digital literacy, not just among students, but faculty and staff? I don't think we should tell them how to do that, but I think we can agree as a board, that might be something we like. We're certainly spending our money on it.
Right,
That's what I said.
Again, I'm pulling from the experience of my last district. The board goals in my last district were never more than a page. 3 primary goals.
I agree.
And so looking at this, it's a whole lot for us to digest and implement for you. For me, that goal, and I don't mean to beat the dead horse, but that goal of 100% graduation rate guides so much of what I do in this building. The Learning Center, how we go about interventions for testing, and so on and so forth. If you said, if you want to focus on digital literacy, then a goal, again, board goals, the foofy big picture language is not inappropriate. Focusing on digital literacy for all students. 21st century, a 21st century school district, modeling or leading in technology implementation. If you guys give us those big pictures, and then challenge us as a team to then put in the action steps, and how will we assess it, and how will we know? Because we have the opportunity, we have the time to sit down in an AC meeting and nail down, here's what it would look like. Okay, so you're saying marketing or, school of destination. Okay, so that forces us to brainstorm, how would we do that? And how could we measure that? Real estate, real estate values. We could bring in real estate. I mean, we have the time as an administrative team to really fine-tune those things if you guys give us those big picture goals.
Yeah, so that's our work, right? So
Yeah.
That's something that they had told us at training on this, that I've been to numerous times. Keep them short, sweet, and brief, and
That's
attainable,
right.
Yeah.
and measurable.
And
I think our job is to create an environment where they can excel.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't think it can be that, I don't think it's that easy. I think it's easy to say that, but for example, if you bring up the college and career readiness, we're held accountable by that. We're held accountable by that.
But there is one of those items we are sort of leaving out of this, which I think is fairly important, and that is career. I made this comment
Exactly right.
at the retreat. I really think we need to work at just getting one tiny little reference to skills or, jobs, I don't know what. And again, I might leave that up to you. But that's the direction we're headed. I think we need to include that.
Are there accepted standards for what is in fact college and career ready?
Yes.
Yeah.
What are they?
80% on the ELA Regents, 80% on a math Regents exam and 75% on the ELA Regents exam.
Right.
And I can tell you that we shared this at our board, at our retreat, that 80% of our students met the standard in ELA, but only 40% of our students met the standard in math. And so that's set a target, that set a goal for me right out of the gate. So that's already my goal. But again,
That to me would be 100% goal. If we could get 100% of our kids college and career ready, that would be.
So do they have the same metrics for career, Douglas? What kind of metrics do they use for career ready?
Well, we're still working basically on that. That's pretty new.
So there's no metrics that
There's no
demonstrate
metrics,
career.
but I mean, I don't even care if you just toss in the word career. I just want to see us headed, thinking
Yeah,
about that.
I think
We're not in
everybody agrees with that.
education for education's sake.
But it's an uphill battle, because the state
Oh, it
basically
is.
saying, in order to be successful, everyone needs a college education. And there is part of me that says, that would be the ideal, that would be fabulous.
Not for
But the
everybody.
pragmatic in me says it's not gonna happen. And there's a lot of people who are just as successful without a college education.
Well, they actually say college and career ready, but that's the standard at
That's,
which they
and
set
it's
it.
college.
Yes,
And it's
yes.
based on,
For college.
it's based on what do you need to be able to be successful at a,
Either one.
at a college, at the college level.
But
Oh, so it's not
Right.
separated, that's what
More
you
and
mean?
more and more they're converging. In
Right.
fact, in
Right.
a way, part of what's flipped on us is that
Yeah.
you have to be able to read at a higher level for many careers than you do to get into college. in
Which
some
is
ways.
correct.
So
Right.
rather than careers, maybe the old mental model was like, well, that was for students who weren't college ready. Now, if you're really both college and career ready, you really are ready to do both.
Either.
But that's in math and literacy. That's really what it comes down to, and able to work in a team, creativity. We emphasize many things. I think what would help our leadership team is most clearly that our board and we together can agree on what our high school graduate looks like when they leave our district. Ideally, the skills that they possess and the levels that they reach in college and career readiness and the ELA and the math region, and also the experience our students have as they go through. And then that breaks down a little bit, but things like 100% of anything, that's pretty clear for Jeannie. She's not here, but.
Yeah, she's at the third grade, she's got the third grade reading.
She's pretty clear about that. John has that. I mean, and Cisco has that challenge. They come up, and if we can get them 100% in third grade to read
He
at
doesn't have
a
a
proper level.
I don't,
then they-
you don't have, and that's actually what I wanted to say. Is that I would challenge the board to make a middle level goal.
Oh, I see.
Because there's a lot of things at the middle level that are very significant. Character, you know, we do a lot of character education, we do a lot of things around trying to prepare, trying to finish out that first phase of their elementary existence and then move them into their secondary existence. And that, I think, those things can't be sort of, okay, well, we're gonna set 100% graduation rate, and then we're gonna set a goal down here, and then you just have to sort of find how you fit in. I think you as a board, it would be helpful to say, well, you do fit in, and this is how you fit in, and this is where we want to see our kids in the middle going, or at least working on. I just read an article about being a leader in a middle level and saying, and challenging boards to just this. So the fact that we was talking about it, I think is important, that, you know, we don't ignore sort of that middle level. It's a different animal, it really is. But if it doesn't have specific goals, it becomes muddy. And it becomes, well, why aren't they doing this? And why aren't they doing that? Because you're trying to fit us into something that we're not quite. So you have to make us what we are.
What would you think about us going home and each board member sitting down and thinking of what's the nearest and dearest to their heart, 30,000-foot kind of goals that they find important to themselves, and gather a list together of maybe 20 goals from our board members and put them on the whiteboard and sit down and discuss them and hash them out and come up with the ones that we think are really important and formulate a goal for these guys.
I have not met, here's what we gotta do, we gotta decide as a board, number one, do we think goals are important? Sounds like everybody else.
And need direction.
Number two,
Yes.
what kind of a process are we gonna follow to draft and adopt our board goals for this year? And number three, we schedule the time to do it. So I put this out there as ideas and things in my head. I would love if everybody put goals together, so we still have the question of what's the process gonna be? I'm all, whatever, what do you guys want?
Well, I like this idea. One request I would make is if you do that during opening day, you have a speech. One thing the staff look forward to is having direction from day one. And it appears that either we keep the current goals we have and you explain that, but also explain we're looking to either broaden or narrow down, or at least give them some directions. We're not gonna jump way off of this, so come November, they're gonna like hit the brakes and say, we've been going the wrong direction. Because now we're playing the part of New York State where they do these things. And we don't want to develop those habits.
Well, that's exactly right, that's well said, yeah, that's well said.
I don't see why we couldn't, I don't know what everybody's schedule is like, if we took time at home that wasn't in a form, to think of your own thoughts, get them on paper, get them collected, that we could meet before school, and just have just a meeting where we talk about nothing but that for an hour, so.
Saturday.
I'll do it.
An hour?
I'll do it, a couple hours, whatever.
Oh.
I agree with John.
Let me-
Maybe you don't agree. I agree with
No,
what
no,
he
I
said about
agree,
not
but
having.
I think it's gonna take a lot of, I agree,
We
but I
need
think it's
50
taking more
goals.
than an hour.
We don't need 50 goals.
Well, I think if we separate them into goals that we're charging them with direct responsibility for, all kids reading by
Right.
3rd grade, or 100% graduation, those are real, and the Common Core, which we're by law forced to do so,
Yeah.
while that's a goal, it's somewhat redundant. So, in order to get them started for the year with clearly defined goals that you as the principal can articulate and they can then reinforce, we're really only talking the first 2 and in addition to include the middle school. So I think that could be a pretty short discussion, because number 3, I don't think, or the reading by the 3rd grade level, I'm not sure we want to change that or do anything with it.
Do we like, so if, to Gary's point, if.
And then I think it could be a short, if we're talking about marketing, while that involves them, it doesn't involve them opening day.
I mean, can we make a goal that we want to focus, we want a school destination to be a focus of our district?
Well, I think,
All the time.
I think it depends. I put it
That's our
under,
mission.
I put it under financial, but that's because we're gonna have to,
But that doesn't impact them.
No, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. That's just-
Well, I mean, it doesn't in the sense that you have to say that to your teachers every day, or like you do to say, by 3rd grade, everyone's got to be reading it at a 3rd grade level, or we're going to have 100% graduation. I understand they're related, and yes, you overall, collectively, we all have that responsibility, but it's not the mantra that you're going to be saying every day.
Frank, would it be possible for us to sort of set up an ad hoc committee on the marketing? And
Yeah. I mean, I think I do think I think we can do whatever we want as far as that stuff goes. I think the point of the question, it seems to me right now, is what Gary's suggesting, if I heard it right, is simply, we sort of like the existing goals that we have. In addition, we could spend a few minutes trying to hash out or consider what a middle school goal would look like. Now, I have to tell you, the problem I have is I took notes when you were talking. I'm saying, okay, character, transition to secondary school, academic performance, not just test scores. Navigating the sort of things in the math. Writing a goal about that, particularly for me, it might be easier as somebody that worked in that environment. For me, I'm thinking, what the hell? What do we want it to do?
Good.
Okay, help them
That's
survive
my
one
life.
building and get ready for the next building. I mean, in some odd way. So I don't know. What Gary said about just establishing a middle goal, we could spend our time just doing that. And our other discussion is, boy, this is a good idea. Or we have an idea about something, let's flesh it out. We can do that in our board meetings as well as other meetings. What do we feel like?
I like keeping what we have now and altering just a little bit in the fact that this is a very long process and it can go under a great deal of emotion, great wide perspective here. And I don't mean to sound absurd, but if we adopt the current that we have, look at some of these objectives, and I think you did these, or this is from the retreat.
Medical leadership.
If we were to adopt what we have now, kind of tie it into this, and take the goals and work on them now, so come next July, everyone knows what we're doing. We don't rush into this. If what we have is just tinker a little bit with what we have now, you're set to open the doors, people know what we're doing, they have a sense of direction.
If I could maybe just
Go right
respond to
ahead.
that or add to it, is I believe that the board goals need to be solidified before the budget process begins, because they probably will, well, they should definitely impact our budgetary decisions. When we've got tough decisions.
And we could adopt this in January for the following year, so everybody knows what we're doing. Pre-budget.
I just have to add, the existing goals that we have, our teachers have created their goals for this year from the board goals, from 12-13. So we're actually going into a year planning. Teachers have plans based on those goals. So if we're changing the goals or adding objectives, I mean, that may not be as difficult because I think some of them are big enough, but you're gonna affect the current planning that's already happened. And so what John said, is very true. I don't want to add any more angst to the teachers. I want them to know that what they have set forth is what we expect them to do, and not to get, crazed with changing goals. So.
That's a good point. There's argument for that, for sure.
I kind of hear a couple of things, it seems like. One is the board and all of us want as much clarity as we can 2 and 3 years out. That kind of relates to what Jane said, or 5. Although all I'm reading right now says 2 and 3 year plans about all you can realistically accomplish. And the other thing I hear is that just speaking for everybody, we want to make sure we're not missing anything. So things like hiring a grant writer, a marketing plan, they would be added to what we already have. But I haven't heard anybody say, no, the road we're on right now is wrong or needs to be changed. It's just that we want to make sure, we want to see probably 3 years out. That would be one thing. And then the other part is to make sure that we've got everything going, make sure that everybody's in the vehicle, so to speak, going forward. And if that's marketing, the financial piece, we can't ignore that.
Well, good goal work always starts with some sort of brainstorming. Right?
Oh, this is
starts with brainstorming. So I have personally, I thought the ones we've had have been really good. They seem to be broad and sort of address a lot of those things. Unless we want to tweak them in case 100% graduation, do we want to do college and career ready instead of something like that?
Something like that is not.
Yes, we like that.
Thank you.
Well, I do for 2 reasons. One is that I think, at least according to the commissioner, it more clearly defines what is useful as opposed to a diploma, which might not have any meaning to either colleges or a career. So I guess I'd like to change it from 100% graduation to 100% college and career ready as defined by whatever the metric that the commissioner has said on Regis.
That's a great goal. I mean, I don't know, you'll live it out, right, with there in high school.
I like the 100% graduation rate, because I do think that is attainable. 100% college and career ready by that standard, I think that's even more of that's more of a stretch. When I say 100% goal of graduation and we got 94%, I feel like we're inching closer and closer. But right now we're at 40% and 80%, and to say we're going to go to 100% means we're going to 100% increase, 60%. So
let's get started.
I think absolutely, I agree wholeheartedly.
So you want
making it a smart goal.
Well, there you go.
Making it a smart goal and utilizing it as being strategic, measurable, but that are realistic. 100% college career ready in a year's time is not a realistic goal. But I think moving in that direction, 20% increments or something like that would be very reasonable.
So I put that at the bottom. I wrote this increased state testing scores by 40%, but that could be increased college and career readiness by 20%.
But that takes us back to the discussion that we had, John, at the retreat was, what is the significance of the piece of paper? If they're not college or career ready, what is the significance of the diploma?
How often does that happen?
If they're not prepared to go out to life, then what's the significance? I kind of agree here. 100% probably.
Don't say it so reluctantly, Glenn.
No, I'm just like, I thought about it when I first said it to John a little while ago. Well, make that 100% goal, but that's going to be a huge challenge. It's going to be a huge challenge.
So we've got some
it's a more
support
important
for
challenge.
keeping 100% graduation, some for college and career ready.
It's that idea of a moral imperative. I think you're right. I would love to say, I think that 100% of our kids should leave here college and career ready. I also know there are realities that come in the way of that.
I don't disagree.
But same thing with 100% graduation rate. I don't want to get into the conversation. We can make excuses all night long.
Right.
My issue is that I agree with you. 100% college and career ready is absolutely a moral imperative when you think about our kids leaving the high school and going out and surviving, being able to support themselves. But I also know that getting 100% of those kids there is difficult. I do think you're right. There is a big difference between having a diploma and being college and career ready.
But one is measurable and the other one isn't. I like the 100% graduation rate. It's measurable.
So is the college
Well,
and career ready.
I like to.
Yes, if
By
you
the standard,
says.
by the standard that the commissioner has set, I like that as a standard, in the sense that it gives us something to focus on. That idea of getting kids to 80% on a math regents. The challenge is figuring out how we're gonna do it. It's difficult to go back. This is something I've spoken with my math teachers about. Scott Voorhees and I had a conversation about, what are you gonna do, make kids retake a math exam that they've passed? That's one of our challenges, is that we have kids that will pass with a 66, they'll pass a regents exam, and now they've met, that meets the standard for the diploma, and now they can say, I don't need to take it over again. I don't need to raise my scores because I'm going to graduate. So now I'm saying, no, that's not good enough. You need to do more than that.
So if we take baby
So-
steps and we say, everybody should at least pass at the, what's the passing math rate for regents?
60, 65.
So maybe that should, 100% passing of the regents should be.
But
our-
that's a graduation.
But I want to see,
rate.
well, I want to see us, Gary, I'm with you. I think it has to be an 80, like, our goal should be that all kids should be able to get an 80% on a math exam. I know that we're not going to get 100%, but that should be our goal. I think that's a reasonable expectation. When you look at the algebra regents exam, that we should strive to get every kid to an 80% on that. Because there's very few jobs that again, I go back to technology, but being able to use technology, being able to, you can't do much, but if you can't do algebra, you can't make change. How many times have we all been frustrated when you went into a restaurant, the kid couldn't make change when you gave him a penny? That's us saying, no, that's not acceptable anymore. We need to make sure that the kid doesn't need to use a calculator to make change. So yeah, you should be able to get an 80 on an algebra exam. So I agree with you, absolutely. I'm hesitant to say 100%, but I think that if we were to say 60% in 1 year's time, 80% in 2 years' time, 90% in 3 years' time, yeah, I think phased implementation. I set myself, Mike and I talked about a 3-year, I said 80% in 3 years. Because we're also talking about standard, we're changing our whole math curriculum with the modules, the whole assessment process is changing with us, so. But I think that a goal on that line is totally on track.
And I think breaking it down to yearly goals, my conversation with John is, let's break that down. What could it be for 20% 1 year? It'd be great if we said, our students who reach the advanced designation or Regents diploma has increased by 20% in 1 year. That would be a wonderful accomplishment.
And I agree with you that the state doesn't change the rules.
Well, we can't help that, but they're gonna do what they're gonna do no matter what. We
So
always have to map
it's
it out
an
the state.
interesting goal to shoot for.
Well,
and
I think maybe a compromise might be that 100% college and career ready is the goal. Maybe the subtext of that goal is, we're going to do it incrementally, and that by
Because
2016, we're there.
The problem that I will just, again, to quickly, I will summarize my excuses for you right up front. The problem is that the kids who are going to graduate in 2014 have already done. They're already done.
Okay, let me interrupt you, John.
So for me to say.
So let's say the goal then is by June of 2016, we're going to have 100%. Or,
Yeah.
And that's describing our
Substantially towards
graduate.
that.
So,
yeah.
Years out.
Right, because it's
Everybody's
hard
got
to
a
say
shot
that
at
the
it.
class of 2014 is
Right.
going to be greater college and career readiness because they're already done with the math exam. I can already tell you where they stand in terms of college and career readiness in a way that I have no control over changing it right now because they're already done with the EL exam and they're already done with the math exam.
well, maybe a
But
realistic
3
goal
years'
would be,
time.
so the incoming class is going to be juniors in 16, 17, correct?
Yeah.
So that's
That's
what
my
we're
target
talking
audience,
about.
yeah.
So let's say you got a shot at them for 3 years, make the changes you need to make.
Absolutely.
100% by 2000. No one's going to have to retake them because no one's taken them to begin with.
There's not to argue, but to add to
Is
this,
this automatically accepting?
Cisco has a 7th and 8th grader, so he's the foundation, if not.
Always comes back.
Those goals need to go all
And it does
Right.
use that.
I-
So what's the metric?
You know, so we gotta do
What is that
something.
metric?
Right, we do, but I think I guess I was trying to look at not changing these goals significantly,
Right, I
having
don't-
something to say on next Tuesday. Yes, that's a bigger discussion, and we should have one. So is marketing, so is making this a place of destination, so is the financial thing, so is, there are a lot of other big discussions, and that's definitely one of them, and I agree wholeheartedly that there should be a goal.
So if you said right now, or in summary, that our goal of 100% graduation rate, and we can add, and you can actually let us do the wordsmithing of it, but we want to add a component to that is college and career ready, and challenge us as an administrative team to provide you with some measurable objectives that we will set for over the next, as you say, a 5-year plan. We'll do that. We'll put that together, and I would be glad to share with you some things, and they can stretch right down to the middle school.
I just want to make one other comment, and we can, decide again how we want to move forward with this, but I think about goals when we have to make difficult decisions, like when we've had to let math teachers go. When we have a goal that says, to that point, by 2016, and we have to make decisions about art and music and science, things that are not necessarily part of these 2 tests that are telling us what the hell we're doing. We have to make our decisions based on the goals we set out. And I feel like we have to be very thoughtful about that so that we are accountable, because ultimately when he comes and says, okay, I could cut these math positions, but we need this support, and in fact, I need these 2 that I cut over here, I need those added to support math if that's still our goal. We have to be prepared to align resources in support of these goals. Otherwise, in my opinion, goals are nothing but sort of fairy dust, foo-foo dust. If we're not prepared to make financial decisions on these goals, then in my opinion, they don't have any business being goals, because that is the one decision we make every year that fundamentally dictates what they do or don't do.
But in fact, that's the idea why we shouldn't do it once a year.
Right.
This discussion suggests to me that there should be some kind of a discussion at every board meeting regarding a specific goal that we would like to consider, or one that you bring up and simply say, what if? That we really need to incorporate it into our daily life, so to speak, instead of saying, goals, we have to adopt them, what are they?
Yeah, and I was thinking about adopting it. I was just hoping we could have this kind of conversation at this hour of night, which is really good.
Well, I guess
Douglas, go ahead.
But I would like to point out that you can learn about as much about math in art or music as you can in math class.
But when
Perhaps
we make
more.
budget decisions, do you think that salient point, do you think that's a point that gets discussed?
I think if we want to shore up or to keep our music and our arts programs, which I assume we do, we bloody well better start looking at information that would bear that out.
That's part of our school culture.
Yeah, it
And
is.
there are times when we make cuts that I think significantly affect the actual culture of the school.
Yes, but we make them because we haven't figured out any other way to deal with them.
But to some extent, I think that's our fault for not looking at the options of teaching. I mean, at one point, I hate to keep going back to this, but the old 4th grade art and architecture program, those kids learned more about measuring, math, music, and the math of music, simply because of the research they did for that project. I mean, they came out of there.
Well, here's my sense of what we're talking about right now. You're talking about, what I hear us talking about is, we don't seem to be I think we don't tie those things together. The way we paint with broad brushes about, we have to cut positions, we don't say, here's what we're not going to do the way we used to do. We don't talk about it like that. We say, we need the money, here's where the money is, get those teachers. We don't talk about what you're talking about is, when we lose art, we lose math, we lose science, we lose all these other things. So it's not part of our discussion. We tend to make decisions based on what the goal says. Those tests are our metrics, and we get bound up to it.
No, what I'm saying is that we need to make sure we value and use
the opportunities we have in art and music. To bolster.
That's why I say there has to be some sort of goal around what type of person and student you want out of this school district. Because part of creating somebody who's exposed to art, music, that's why they're mandates at the middle level. Because they want them to have all of those experiences, because they know that if it were up to us, we'd give them math and English and maybe some social studies. And
So in the
science
mission,
testing.
we talk about that specifically, about the kind of kid we want. So would be easy to make a goal if we felt like that was something we should do. It should be relatively easy. Now, how to measure it and those sorts of things that's where it gets dicey for me. I don't know about that stuff.
Some things are harder to measure.
Certainly deserves more thought.
Well, I think the two things that I heard that were important was that we have a set of goals for opening day, that we can, that the administration and building principals in particular.
Ladies, we're not gonna let you sit together.
Are,
Fine.
Sorry.
so one thing was that we had goals that we could articulate on opening day, and that the principals and administration could constantly refer to in a succinct manner. I think that's one frame of the discussion. The second was what Sarah said, that we shouldn't significantly change the goals we had because the planning that's been done was based on these goals. So if we change only the first goal from 100% graduation to 100% career, college and career ready, as defined by the commissioner by 2017, or as part of that graduation goal, we have accomplished both things.
Those are one and the same, I agree. I agree with that.
But they do help. I think they help John's work because it isn't just graduation anymore.
Right.
It's a higher standard of graduate. So
Yes.
I think it does help the work.
Yeah.
And it's more specific. It's both a math and an ELA test.
In all honesty, the 100% graduation, I know you think is something that's possible that hasn't happened yet, and probably, it's going to be disciplinary problems, some kids are going to get arrested, who knows? Things out of your control are going to allow you to never actually win. You're never going to get that goal. I'd rather see you have an attainable goal, that the teachers at the end of the year can feel like we won, we got to win, this is our goal, we met it. I don't think the 100% graduation rate is realistic.
But
I know it's something we all want to happen, I just don't know that it's a realistic goal.
right, I mean, the thing that is exciting to me is that within the context of that 100% graduation rate goal, over the last 3 years, we've raised it 13%.
Yeah.
And when I walk into my faculty on opening day, one of the first things I'm going to say to them is, one, we had 94% of our kids through in June. Not in August, not after a 5-year, but in 4 years we had 94% of our kids graduate. We also, last year, had 99% of our freshman class earn 5.5 credits, which means that 99%, all but one kid in our freshman class, is on track to graduate in terms of, now, the
You can still prioritize.
right,
that,
so
not have
that's,
to be the goal.
those are celebrations for me.
Right.
And now, I'm saying, I'm ready to take it to the next step. And I appreciate the challenge that the board has laid out a challenge to me and to the staff at the high school and the middle school and the elementary school. Because it absolutely is a K-12 goal, which is increase college and career ready standard. So now, we're going to continue to strive for 100% graduation rate, but now we're finessing that goal to say we want more kids to graduate with advanced designation, and we want more kids graduating college and career ready. So now you just raised the bar for us. So we've got stuff to celebrate, and absolutely we're going to keep moving forward.
And I think there's more pressure on the middle school to get it started, to make your job easier.
Yeah, get her done, dude.
I'd like to comment on the objectives that I was handed here this evening. If I may, I don't believe it's out of line or too much. Going back to the new math, as some of us in my age had difficulty trying to teach our kids, I guess we somewhat abandoned that, but the literacy objective, if I may read it, in the line, teacher-student understanding of close reading, text-dependent questions, and implement ensure teacher and student understanding. And if I flip over to the following page, align teacher-student understanding of the instructional shift. Going back to the controversy of the new math of many years ago or decades ago, we have to somehow, all these changes we're making and what we're expecting our kids to do, how we're going to get there, is not forget the most important element of the parents. That they have to know what is expected, what Common Core means, the whole gambit. Because it makes me feel like back in the day when my kids were young and come home and it's this new math that I forget how it all came about. But if we don't have the parents to understand this, I don't think all of us understand it, as is evidenced by the state. So let's not lead the community beyond what we're doing. So I would suggest that open houses, when we have this, that somehow be put out there that please understand that we're doing the Common Core learning standard, and this is kind of what it entails.
She does a fabulous job. She does a fabulous job with that. And, you know, that's sort of been my model now of how I'm gonna communicate to my parents what's going on and how I'm going to sort of bring them on board, because you know, it is happening, but it's happening in trickles. And last year, I'll be honest, it was not on my, you know, top priorities of things to do, because I was just trying to figure out what to do. But it is one of those things that I know on my level, I'm absolutely looking at. How do we communicate that to parents? How do we bring parents on board? And then how do we educate them as to what is actually happening, and not just, you know, the buzz on the news or the buzz, you know, because you can get all that stuff, and you can get all that stuff on Facebook, and, you know, obviously the squeaky wheels always get the grease, but, you know, what's really happening in this, in the school?
Well, I have to say, I've been on the board, this is my 9th year. And when I first came on, my kids were just kind of getting through. Now this year, I'll have a Head Start child, a 2nd grade child in the high school. I'm scared as hell. As a parent, it's kind of like, not only am I going through this again, but it's changed. Now, from my view here, I can see it, but now I have to feel it. And I'm really worried. Scared just like the whole new parent thing. Maybe more so.
What are you afraid of, John? I'm scared of. The
Things
Common Core?
yes, and the things have changed so much when kids went to school, when my kids went through. And now their expectations of testing and what they're supposed to know upon entry and kind of gravitating through the grades. I wouldn't change my situation for the world, trust me on that. But I sure wish it didn't have to be.
Well, John, what you say is really significant, because the commissioner even said, you're not going to implement the Common Core until you've taught the parents. So you're right, I think that's a piece that we can add to the goals that I think would be, just put that in the forefront of our minds, that's an audience that we need to make sure that we educate as well.
And you may never get them all,
No.
but we have to do something.
But without getting them, you're not gonna get on kids either.
True.
So we could do that by adding one brief wordsmithing to goal 7.
Yeah, that's,
So it seems like what I've heard is something about college and career ready and graduation rate. I've heard something about Cisco's suggestion about something in the middle, but maybe about a goal for sort of what we want our Trumansburg student to look like when they leave here. A little more clarification about the Common Core relative to communicating with parents. So can we task people that's not me to write those? Cisco, Sarah, can you help us with those? And then John and Gary, we can do a cage match with you two about the graduation rate in the college.
We're on the same page.
We're totally on the same page. Good.
Yeah.
So
We're
which
just
is
adding
it?
something.
Which is it? We're just gonna addend the 100% graduation rate, or we're gonna go to college?
Yeah, I'm glad to work with Mike to wordsmith that.
We'll get it. Good.
And put that together.
So, in the meantime, we feel comfortable as a board moving forward with the goals that currently exist from last year, and no need to change them significantly for, it sounds like a lot of really good reasons.
Yes.
Not the least of which is it's 9:20 at night, and we're tired to do this.
That's school starts in a week.
Yeah.
Federal orders.
So, okay, I guess with that, we can skip over board forum unless there's need for board forum, and then Tina was just very kind enough to look at goals from adjacent school districts. She emailed them to me or everyone. So you have those, if you have some brainstorms, yes, she just sent.
Oh, just
Ah,
okay.
So let me get my agenda here. I think that without board forum, what am I doing here? I already know what I'm doing here. There we go. We're going to, board forum and adjournment. So, all in favor?
Aye.
There we go.
I'll mail board form out tomorrow.
You have something.